So after last night's debacle of the coronavirus primaries, after people tried to step in, constituents spoke out, asking Tom Perez, asking the Secretary of States, asking the governors to cancel the primaries in Illinois, Arizona, and Florida. Nothing happened. They came and they went as usual, and of course it was a disaster. We can not even mention the voting machines and the election fraud. The government forced people to choose between exercising their democracy and possibly getting a coronavirus that they could infect on other people, even if they are healthy. It is criminal. It is beyond disgusting. It should be prosecuted. Tom Perez should be prosecuted. All these people should be prosecuted. It's crazy to think that we live in supposedly the greatest country in the world, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and they made people choose between their health and voting for somebody they believed in. And unfortunately, obviously, it depressed turnout. A lot of people did not vote, and the people who did go out and vote had to go far away to vote. I mean, we covered this all day yesterday. We saw Illinois, we saw the lack of poll workers, the voter suppression due to closing down of polling locations, people not showing up to work, understandably so, not having cleaning supplies, not having ballots, which is unacceptable. Then we saw Florida, people just not turning out because of the coronavirus. Florida is mainly an area where there's a lot of seniors, a lot of retired populations, and the fact that they still didn't care and had it is unfathomable to me. It's insane. And then we saw, of course, Arizona, where there was so many different issues regarding like polling locations that closed, the provisional ballots. And, we look at this and they say, oh, you're a sore loser. You're a sore loser. The reality is we're not sore losers. We are being asked to give a vote to a man that is to the right of Trump right now. It's insane to say that, but that's the truth. Joe Biden is to the right of Trump. I mean, he supported NAFTA. He supported cutting down Social Security and veteran aid. He supported the building of cages during the Obama administration. He supported building a wall, sounded a lot like Trump. He was part of the disastrous foreign policy as Clinton, as Secretary of State, that created more of an immigrant crisis while he was wanting to call himself the guy that's going to be great for immigrants and is calling for unity and talking about how he has women support him and Latinos. It's all bullshit. And, these people have been smearing and attacking Bernie supporters for years now, calling them sore losers, calling them children, saying they're being irrational. And it's disgusting because the reality is Bernie supporters were right all along. I mean, if we had a president, Bernie Sanders, right now, the pandemic that we're living through wouldn't be so devastating. We would have economic safety nets already in place. We would have Medicare for all. This virus, this pandemic proves the need for somebody like Bernie Sanders. So nearly 100 years ago, we had FDR, who saw that there was an economic depression. We had just come out of a war. We needed a New Deal. And he was pressured by many of his constituents, and he listened and he did that. I mean, he was described as a pretty much democratic socialist, and we need that again. And it's so dangerous to think that we're not going to have that because of the Democratic Party rigging the elections to make Biden the nominee. Because that's what, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what it is, flat out. These elections are fraudulent. These elections are a sham. If another country did this, we would invade them and tell them that their elections are not valid, because we're really good at doing that for other countries. But for our own country, we just look the other way and pretend it's not happening. And that includes Bernie Sanders and the campaign. They need to be talking about this. And I know that they're hesitant because of several reasons, one of them being optics, and I think that's a bunch of bullshit. They're going to call you a sore loser anyway. It doesn't matter how kind Bernie is. It doesn't matter how good he does. It doesn't matter how he says the right thing. If he supports Biden, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they're never going to accept him. They're never going to respect him. And all that we love is on the line. So I'm going to implore two things. One, I am imploring people to not stop talking about the election integrity issue, to push against even the campaign who isn't talking about it. Make this known. This issue is so important, because if we don't have a fair system and have fair elections, we're going to really have a hard time taking over anything, and it's not going to happen. And at this point, people like to say, oh, we're taking over the Democratic Party. We're not. The Democratic Party has taken us over. And the reality is, if the Democratic Party has taken us over, then what do we have? We have nothing, because we haven't built outside structures enough. There's the Green Party, but they're usually not viable. There's the Libertarian Party, but they're not the leftist progressive that we want. So it's like we have to build outside cadres. We have to build these movements outside. But at the same time, we're not going to be able to do that if we don't have election integrity. So if you're not talking about what happened last night, if you're just going to accept it, then you really aren't keen to what the progressive movement needs to do. That's the number one thing we need to do right now, is talk about election integrity, make sure that this gets the attention that it's never gotten. Because if anything, if you want to dismiss everything that's happened until last night, fine. But last night cannot be dismissed. A lot of us are doing a lot of work to basically prove as much as we can, because when they control the power, when they control the systems, we're never going to get that proof that people so desire to have. The other thing I'm going to ask is, dear Bernie Sanders, do not drop out, do not give up. There's so much on the line right now, so many things that are riding on you staying in the race. And if you give in and support Joe Biden, know that it is a waste, because we are not coming with you. And I know that a lot of people went and supported Hillary Clinton in 2016, but 4 years later, we've learned that did absolutely nothing. Hillary Clinton is the rot of the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton was a war criminal, and even then, she lost to Donald Trump. You have now a senile Joe Biden. He's not mentally equipped to be the president of the United States, and it is not cruel to say that. It is factual. It is cruel to lie to the American people and pretend that everything's okay when it isn't. And so we have Joe Biden, and of course the Democratic Party clearly is pushing him through to get the nomination. We don't want him. We told you from the start we never wanted him. So it doesn't matter if you beg and you endorse him and you tell us to vote for him. We're not going to vote for him. The majority of us aren't going to vote for him. You're going to see Trump win in a landslide. And unfortunately, some people are going to vote for Donald Trump because they see him as the lesser of evils. And if we're really talking strict policy, the Republicans are making Democrats look like conservatives. The Republicans are approving all these things, and it's dangerous territory, because if we look at history, there in Germany, when the working class was suffering, that's when Hitler's Third Reich came about, and they pretty much acted like they were the working people's party, the populist movement. That's what we're seeing people be pushed to. We're seeing people be pushed to the right. We're seeing people start feeling like, oh, the Democratic Party is so bad, the Republicans are better. And that's a dangerous territory that we really don't want to be in, because the moment we go there, we have the potential for an actual fascist takeover. And I think that's where we're headed. We have the perfect storm right now. We have Joe Biden potentially becoming the nominee, and we have an epidemic of massive proportions like we've never dealt with. We have a climate crisis, we have an economic crisis, and we have a political crisis. It is a perfect storm. And this is like the worst time to drop out and endorse somebody that is incapable of dealing with this. And not only that, is part of the system that led to Donald Trump. You always talk about how Donald Trump is, sexist, racist, homophobe, and all of this may be true, but Donald Trump is a result of the Democratic Party's failures, a result of neoliberal policies, and since Reagan and into Clinton, and then through Bush and Obama. That is a reality, and people are waking up to that. And the younger generations, we see that. But when you don't say anything about the voter disenfranchisement, and you tell young people to participate in the political process, and they do, and then there's a 16-year-old girl at a polling location waiting for ballots that never came, waiting for cleaning supplies that never came, you're telling these young people that their voice doesn't matter, that it's all a charade, that it's only used to maintain the Democratic Party in place, to maintain the Republican Party in place, the duopoly, the oligarchy, the plutonomy, whatever you want to call it. It's all these power structures that are being kept in place. And the reality is we aren't going to take that anymore, because what happens is, in the long run, electing somebody like Joe Biden is worse, because let's say by a miracle he wins against Donald Trump and then he becomes president. it is going to put people back to sleep. It's going to make some people feel like, okay, at least we got rid of Trump. Yay. No. If we continue on that mindset, we're never going to change the system. And we're here to change the system because the system has been kind to a lot of us here, a lot of millennials, a lot of the Gen Z. We are facing a climate catastrophe, economic collapse. We haven't had the very simple things that other people have had. So to quit right now, your voters do not want you to quit. Your voters are with you. But the reality is we're not going to vote for Joe Biden. So if you quit, our plan is to continue the fight without you. And our plan is to have an actual revolution, an actual revolution, a working people's movement that cannot be unless the corrupt mechanisms are exposed, the party mechanisms, the mechanisms of control are exposed. And that includes, of course, freedom of speech. It includes, of course, the fact that our elections aren't fair and everybody knows it and nobody does a goddamn thing about it. And all of these things have to be exposed. And we no longer believe that the Democratic Party has anything salvageable. Because what happens is our people go in the Democratic Party and guess what? They have to play ball, they have to play games, and they in turn change. The Democratic Party co-opts them. We don't co-opt the Democratic Party. And that's the truth. And this is why we have to start building outside structures. But in order to do that, we need an actual revolution. So if you choose to step aside and not continue in this fight as, the head, we understand because this movement is not me, us. It was never about you. It was always about all of us. And you created leaders and organizers and, the movers and the shakers. And that's fine. And that's what we're going to continue doing. But when you ask us to vote for Joe Biden, that's when we're just going to say no. We're going to part ways. We're going to go to the streets. We're going to organize one way or another. Whether they decide to take away this convention or not, we are going to organize. And there's nothing more that pushes us into this direction than what's happening right now. Not just with our elections, but with the epidemic. It just proves that we need somebody like you, Bernie. And the fact is that with somebody like Joe or Trump, the United States won't survive. We just won't. And so we know this. And so that's why we are fighting. We're willing to do everything we can. We want to go to that convention. We want to shake things up. We want to demand that we elect the president that is supported by the majority of the people, not just by the elites who control the Democratic Party structure, who control our elections, and who control our machines. And I have been following the election issues here in California. So to tell me that it's nothing it's a slap in the face as somebody who has supported you since 2015. To you, Bernie, I am saying continue the fight. Do not give up. We're going to be with you. But if you choose to give up the fight, get ready because we're going to be out there. We have outrage. We're not losing sight of it. We're not going to listen to you when it comes to you telling us to vote for Joe Biden because we don't see him as a lesser of two evils. And even if we did, we want to end the cycle that will elect future Joe Bidens and Donald Trumps. Otherwise, we will sweep directly into fascism if we don't stop this. And the only way to stop this is for actual structural revolutionary change. There is no other way of doing it. We want to do it peacefully. And I think the majority of people want to do it peacefully. But it's very frustrating to see that not enough people within the electoral politics are really paying attention to what's going on. And if they are looking the other way. So know that we're going to continue the fight. And with or without you, and we are never ever going to vote for Joe Biden. And you said Joe Biden could beat Trump, and that is a lie. And you have to know that that's a lie, because it is absolutely no way that Joe Biden's going to beat Donald Trump. And there's absolutely no way that at this point, after being cheated twice, we're going to have the capacity to look the other way and continue the same endless wheel, the endless pendulum swinging back and forth when we know that the real problem is the structure. It's time for people to stand up and regain their power. And so to everybody else, I say, continue the fight. Use this outrage for organization, for direction. It was never about putting people on a pedestal. It was never about making celebrities out of our politicians. They're human beings that have flaws. It was always about empowering each other and creating a mass grassroots coalition that is actually going to go out in the streets, just like the French did, and demand economic justice, social justice, racial justice, electoral justice, and of course, our personal freedoms. And then we might start to have a semblance of the country that has liberty and justice for all.